Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Tim Pierce. I'm just writing this little piece of music right now because he deserves it, because he's back.
Hello, everybody. And it's like one of my favorite things about your show, Pete, is the coffee. And now I get to have a cup of coffee, but I do want to see the chat or the comments. Let me move over and see if I can.
Oh, yeah.
All right, they're there. Great. It's all there. It's all there. Yeah. Today I get to have coffee, and lucky us, we have a kind of a light rainstorm instead of a full hurricane, it appears. So that's nice.
Not where I'm at.
Tell me.
The street out front is like basically like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go check on my car in an hour or so and just make sure that the water's not.
All right.
It's nuts, man. I mean, but that's California. It's like, it can rain for 5 minutes in the valley hard, and it's like, it's cars are floating away. They didn't build it for rain. It's crazy. That's where it's at, but we love it.
Oh God, yes, we do.
It's great to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you since we spoke maybe at NAMM, and
we did speak. And the great thing is we had that wonderful time at Sweetwater together. Now, I mean, you went to the new Gear Fest, and I didn't make it. Like I said, I'm gonna go by myself sometime and do some sort of event. But yeah, it's been a while, and I know you've been super busy. I watched your last live stream, and there was a gig you did that you couldn't talk about. It sounded like you played on a record or something, and you just can't talk about it. Is that what happened?
Still waiting to find out about it. But there's been like some good news. Like, just some people involved are really happy with it and stuff.
Good.
We still have to wait and hear from the artist, so it's kind of cool. And yeah, I've just been, you can see I got a guitar here on a Gracie stand and stuff. I've just been getting ready for tour and stuff. So it's like I'm crazy right now. I know you've got so much going on with your which we're going to discuss today, but with what you're doing with YouTube and the masterclass and whatnot. Maybe you can fill us in on how it's been going.
Absolutely. I started this thing about 10 years ago, and for a long time I was doing a double shift with doing sessions full-time and this full-time. That's kind of what you do. You're a full-time professional guitar player and sort of a full-time YouTuber. Now I've shifted more to the masterclass because it got really how should I put this? The pandemic kind of turbocharged the masterclass because everybody was at home, learning. And since then, I've started to take it really, really seriously, and I work really hard on refreshing the content for the members. I do masterclass only live streams twice a month, but I also still do occasional sessions. I'm going to East West Tuesday and Wednesday to do a record with some great people, some of whom you know, and so the session world is still active, but I really take this online thing seriously. And as you know, YouTube is more demanding than ever, just because it's so crowded, maybe is the word. There's so many people doing it, so that's always a challenge. You do your best to get a video that people will click on, so that takes a lot of effort. And then in the meantime, all of the stuff in life that requires your attention, the emails, the texts, the phone calls. And anytime I do something with a brand, it exponentially multiplies. Like UA is a great company. I just did something with them. Yeah. And all the logistics and everything that it took to get that, organized and then do it and then be done with it. And just everything piles on. I think everybody's life is that way. I think we weren't meant for this many emails.
Sure. Yeah, I know. It's true. Yeah, that the life work balance thing has gotten more challenging as we get more. I mean, it's great because we're really diversified. I've just seen some people say my mic is low. Can you guys hear me okay? When I have a guest on, I have an issue for some reason with my setup. It's the never-ending cycle of technical problems that we go through. That's part of it, right? Dealing with technical or complex life.
Every day is the first day of school.
every day. And Todd
Yeah.
says you can hear me great. Okay. Yeah. Basically, when I go to when I do a live stream with a guest these days, I got to go to the internal speakers on my computer and the internal microphone. And this I'm not even using right now, and it all goes out the window because it just doesn't work for some reason. But you guys say it sounds fine, so let's not worry about it. Yeah, good. Yeah, man, it's a crazy, like, the light. We could talk a little bit about that and how you, because I'm fascinated with how you you know, deal with the that whole thing, just the life work balance thing, because I'm a little crazy right now. Like, I feel a little crazy myself, you know, but
I do too.
yeah, but let's talk about, we're here just for a second before we get into that, and we can talk about a million different things. The reason we're here is because down in the link in the video description below is a link to Tim's masterclass, which you guys got to check out if you haven't seen it. It's basically you're getting taught by the master Tim himself about all the important stuff. You know, what really matters, like being musical when you're coming up with guitar parts and doing sessions and stuff like that. And you can learn from him so much, and I really have been meaning to dive into it as well and learn from you. But anyways, there's a link down in the video description. You can click there because there's a big discount right now. Tim approached me about, I don't know, 2 months ago and said, hey, what if we do a thing on your channel and offer a special price, reduced price for the masterclass so people can sign up and we'll talk about it. I said, absolutely, come on the show and let's talk about it, and let's see what happens. So anyways,
yeah, I'll speak on that for 1 second, and then I'll speak for 1 second on how busy we are, and then we'll just start talking about gear and fun and our, you know, the guitar players we love so much. So the masterclass, I really went overboard. It's got 150 hours of content, probably more than that now. I mean, I just added 35 videos on rhythm guitar. There's a 100 video beginners course. The thing about it that I always insisted on, there's a 14-day free trial. So I don't want you to stay in unless it's right for you. And so I really am a believer in that. And even if you by mistake forgot to cancel, we give refunds, no questions asked. So the idea is you check it out over 2 weeks. If you like it, you stay in. If not, try something else or try another time. But I really feel good about it. I keep adding to it. And like I said, we do twice a month, we do members only live streams, and they're very, very personal and very chill and very intimate, I have to say. So yeah, check it out, see if you like it. Now, the thing about our busyness is this. I've been married for a long time, and my wife is accustomed to me working short hours 7 days a week. That's how we play it. So we spend part of every evening together, but I work on weekends too. I like that. I really like getting something done on the first half of Saturday and the first half of Sunday. Case in point, here we are. We're getting something done the first half of Sunday. And I mean, that is the trick. It's having a partner that understands the demands of this thing. That's part of it. But also, we love our work. I mean, we're lucky. We're lucky in that regard. There's a lot of work making videos that is tedious, but you get used to that. I mean, that's why they call it work.
Yeah, I mean, don't you find, I find myself often getting lost in the process, like, and you know, I have to be careful because if I say I'm going to be somewhere for dinner or I'm going to leave in 10 minutes, okay, I'm going to leave in 15 minutes, and I always have to check myself and be like, am I really going to leave in 15 minutes, or am I just saying that to appease, and then I'm going to get lost for a half an hour and then realize I haven't left, and it's time to, you know, because it takes a minute to shut this room down and get out of here and stuff. So I lose all sense of time, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's magical, I guess. We're really lucky in that respect to be doing something that we can get so lost in, you know, that it.
Yeah, but the hours, it generally, everything takes 2 to 4 times longer than you expect.
Yeah.
And so
2 to 4. I like that. Occasionally 4. Yeah. No, man, you say things that are so profoundly clear and accurate, and that's one of them. Yeah, it's like, if you're planning on, you know, I'm working on that right now because I'm learning a set of music, and it's like, once I'm diving in, I'm realizing, like, okay, like there's gonna be a couple 12-hour days or all-nighters involved in just because it's a lot of tunes. So it's like, yeah, you think you're going to get through this much tomorrow, but it's like you're actually going to get through that much in the next 2 days, you know?
Yeah, songs is stuff that has a lot of specifics. You really have to bear down and nail it. And I am willing to rehearse something 100 times. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's what it takes for me to feel like I own it. For me to feel like it's burned in, and that takes time. Can you talk about what you're preparing for?
Oh yeah. So I'm going on the road with Nick Carter. Um, who I'm sure you probably did sessions for, I'm sure.
He was a little past my era of busyness, so I don't think I did sessions for. Was he in the Backstreet Boys or?
Backstreet Boys. Did you do
Yeah,
Backstreet Boys records?
I did.
Or
I did. Yeah. So not
probably
for
learned
him.
some of your parts. So probably, you know.
That's great. I'm sure it's a lot of material to learn, and you want to get all the sounds right, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and the sounds. I mean, it's like as I'm getting into these songs, and actually, first of all, they're incredibly well crafted pop songs. A lot of
Yeah.
them, and
Yeah.
I mean all of them. There's nothing there. They didn't phone it in on the on that aspect. The writing. I mean, they didn't phone it in on anything. It's all really well done and quite sophisticated. So it's like there's some learning involved, some really beautiful acoustic playing as well. So it's a challenge, but it's really fun.
I'm excited.
I am too. It's going to be a really good show. I think
Wow.
once you put it all together and it kind of just flows, and it's like there's a lot of surprises in it. I'm not going to give them away, but it's fun. A lot of fun stuff. And
Well, here's my one question before we move on.
yeah.
How did they find you? Because this is important for people who are starting careers. Was it a phone call? Was it an email? Was it a personal relationship already in place? How did they find you for this particular gig?
Oh, well, that's a great question. It was actually I first heard about it on Instagram. So it was literally a something that was posted with one of the guys that people in LA will know well. That is a kind of a been around for a long time as kind of a headhunter for musicians. And I'm not going to give away the name because you got to find that yourself. You got to do a little bit of work on your own.
Yeah, he's a very nice person. I had a conversation with him once. He's a very nice man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I first heard about it. And then, but they were originally looking specifically for players out of Vegas, and then they expanded that a little bit, and that's where I came in. And sort of through another. The MD actually emailed me directly and said, "Hey, we're looking for people. Would you know of anybody?" And that was when they were still kind of looking out of a Vegas sort of pool. And I said,
"Would you know of anybody?"
Would you know of any? And I said, "I can think of somebody, but I'm in LA." And they said, "Well, we'll see what happens with And then they sort of expanded their. All right, we'll look for folks in LA as well. And then it was an audition, and it was a fairly old school audition where it was an invite thing where there wasn't like 30 people that went down, but there was a fair amount of people that went down, I think, and it was one of those, and so I went and auditioned, which some people say to me, oh, you've got to audition. It's like like I'm above that or something, and I'm like, I'm not. And a lot of the guys because I saw people before me and after me that went in, and it was the usual suspects that a lot of my friends and people that I've seen, I was like, you're here, and you're here. That's how it was. And it was like, yeah, man, why would I be? I'm not above that. I've got to go audition and put my skills forward like anybody, so that was kind of funny to me, but it was kind of an old school process, to be honest.
Yeah, that is totally old school. One last question. Yeah. Why Las Vegas? What is why is that the magnet?
Nick's based out of there.
Okay, great, cool.
So I think that's we'll do some rehearsing. Well, that was the main thing. Just like just I think for
great answered. Yeah, asked and answered.
But yeah, these days a lot of the gigs seem to happen through MDs, so musical directors. Right. So there's a lot of sort of these days. Musical directors is like that's who you got to hook up with if you're looking for touring gigs. They're putting the bands together and they're doing all the kind of looking for musicians and stuff, and a lot of the organizational logistics. It's a little different than it used to be, but if you can track those folks down, whether you're in Nashville or New York or LA or wherever you are, and kind of get on their radar, and then they'll contact you, about gigs. And there's these kind of, as you know, I think probably like groups like, well, once again, I'm not going to say names because that's just giving away too much, I think. But there's groups that put together bands, and also have rehearsal facilities, and maybe have full video facilities. And like, in other words, if you're an artist, you could go to them and say, hey, I need a band for tour. I need a stage techs. I need monitors. I need front of house. I need a tour manager. And we need to film a live video, and there's these one-stop shops that can help you do all that these days. And that's pretty brilliant. I mean, for those folks that have seen that ahead of that curve.
Well, and I do realize then, when somebody asks you, do you know anybody who would be right for this? They are really offering you, they want your hat in the ring. It's happened to me a few times. When you get asked that, it's like, that is the polite way to ask Pete Thorn if he'd like to take a shot at this. Do you know anybody who'd be right for this? And then it's the ball's in your court, and you can go, well, I'd like to give it a shot.
Yeah,
it's nice. Which is really nice.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. I still face I know we all face this, but I have a hard time when an opportunity comes up, not at least exploring, at what I know that you back when you made a commitment to be a session musician and not go on the road, it probably took an extraordinary amount of discipline to not go on the road. You
did
for things and right?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's a powerful thing for me to talk about. It was heartbreaking to turn down tours. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But like, I remember turning down a Joe Cocker tour, and then they upped the money, and then I turned it down again, and they upped the money one more time, and I turned it down. And that summer, I didn't work much in town, and I remember sitting there sweating, going, why did I turn down that tour? Yeah. I didn't work that much that summer. I was like, but I probably did enough sessions that summer where I made enough connections that ultimately it was the right decision.
Sure.
So, it was hard at times. Yes, it took discipline. And what people don't realize is when there are two choices in front of you, you can only do one. It's like being an actor. You can only be in one place at one time. And the thing that you say no to, there's always a chance that it would have maybe been the best choice. And you have to live with that. There's always a sense of, that's the weird thing. When you get offered a lot of work and you begin to succeed, you're actually losing stuff all the time because you can't be in two places at once.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that. You have to accept that. It's crazy.
I deal with that with YouTube right now because it's like, I don't have enough time to actually do like to what a commitment it is, because you're doing it. I mean, where you're focused on that thing. And I literally there's so much to edit and so much to do and so many things, but I've kind of realized that I love doing YouTube, and by no means am I going to ever stop. It's been fantastic for me, but I have to strike the balance with touring. And so sometimes it's turning down things because it's like, which is my own little small business, YouTube. Sometimes it's pushing that aside to go and do the thing that I love because I feel like I have to go out and play. Like, it's just, that's how I started. I did it for so long. To not do it feels like death to me. So I have to do it. Yeah,
you are a professional guitar player, and you're busy, and people value you, and that's your 51%. That's the other thing about decisions. Sometimes it's 51% to 49%, and just that 51%, that extra 1%, that's your whole game. So yeah, you're doing the right thing, but it is a sacrifice. And lastly, I've gotten used to having a list of stuff to do and realizing that I only get 10% of it a day done. I've gotten used to being permanently behind. Permanently behind.
That's the name of my next album, dude. Permanently Behind. That's terrible. I can imagine all kinds of the cover would be. Oh God, permanently behind. Good.
You just apologize all the time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, constantly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All the emails. When's this coming? When's this happening? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's true. Yeah, a lot of it helps to be Canadian because I'm used to saying sorry with no sorry rather. Sorry, couldn't do it. Here's, Richard says, did you and Tim see the post by Greg Hawk that both his amps farted out at a gig and he ended up borrowing a Boss Katana? He said he laid waste with it. I can just hear him saying that. I laid waste.
I can speak to that quickly if you want. I did a gig at the Baked Potato with my friend Andrew Sinowick in February, and I rehearsed. I built my rig in my studio and tested it. My divided by 13 head, my 112 cabinets. I fully tested everything. I showed up at the Baked Potato, and that day, my divided by 13 decided to fry. And then I called my wife to bring me more heads, and Andrew, in his ultra professionalism, carries a rig in the pocket of his Prius. So he opens up the thing, the secret compartment, and there's is it a crate solid state 100-watt head that's about this big?
Yeah, okay? The power block.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And he pulls this thing out, and I set it on top of my cabinets and turn on one of my gain pedals, and it sounds phenomenal.
Just fine, right?
Like the man saved me. His professionalism just saved me, and then Patty brought all of the heads, but I was already superstitious about the crate. And so I did the historic Baked Potato with my little
Dude, that's
crate.
Awesome. I love that. When we were just on tour and your buddy Sean Hurley was out playing bass, and his SVT farted out about a week before the end of the tour, and he's at sound check, and he's got a little Seymour Duncan power amp and his Nobles Pre, so he could have just used that. But I said, wait, I got something else that I want you to try. And I ran and I got my Amped One from Black Star, which is a little like, that's what it's the modern version of that crate, basically. There's some options on there to get US sounds or UK sounds, different power tube types and stuff. So we put it on kind of the US Fendery setting. And I go, just plug this in. So you got this SVT sitting there that, of course, weighs 112 pounds. And then this little Black Star thing sitting to the side with the speaker cable plugged in. It sounds great. Front of house guy's like, yeah, it's cool. It's like not quite as good, but it's pretty damn good.
I was totally satisfied. I mean, it was like, the pedals we use these days are so good. It just sounded great,
Honestly, with pedals, I find sometimes the more neutral and
right.
a little bit less, like magic. The sound of, say, an AC30 on the top, which you're very familiar, like the top boost channel, and it's all chimey and got all this. You hit that with an overdrive pedal, and it might be a little like blown up and weird, but a flat, clean sound with a nice pedal in front is kind of the vibe. I mean, it's just like, right?
It's so true. When I used to record a lot with Rob Cavallo, he had high watts, and we would always, whenever we wanted to do a fuzz part, we would use the high watt because it was just big, clean gain.
Yeah.
And it always sounded really best. So that's an example of that. You'd be right. You would be right about that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just less, a distortion or an overdrive is going to accentuate the sound of whatever you're plugging into. That's what I find. So if it's got a scoop, like Fendery Super Scoop with with the bright switch on, it's going to sound maybe weird. That's a Tube Screamer works well into that for the very reason that it's all mid, so it fills in the hole where the Fender is, and it's not very bright. So especially when you turn the tone down, like a lot of people, and so it kind of works. But it's all a recipe, I guess. But if you've got a broad sounding distortion or overdrive pedal, it sounds generally best into a neutral, clean sound, I find, and maybe
absolutely
that crate is a good, a good.
Yeah, it was just pure, clean power, and it was just ideal. It was quite a lesson to learn. Definitely.
That's cool. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's also it's your hands and your, and the ability to make different things work. You're gonna do that with what you've got.
That's true too. I was talking to Jorgen Carlson the other day, great bass player from Government Mule, and he's when Lukather does a gig, Jorgen does. You probably saw him at Christmas. You went and saw him, and we were talking about Michael Landau. And Michael Landau, there was a quote I saw recently that blew me away in retrospective. Because he was always showing up with a relatively simple rig, but his tone was always the best tone there was. Okay. And he said in this quote, he said, it's really important that you put together a simple rig that works. You don't have to have a lot of sounds, but you have to remove that struggle so that when you show up on the session, you can just play. And then, so, you know, I did a couple of sessions sitting next to him, and it was all in his hands. And he had like 4 great sounds, wasn't really obsessed with effects, didn't have the whammy pedal, didn't really care about that at the time or whatever. But the tones he had were pure, great delays, great reverbs, great stereo spread. And his rig always worked perfectly all the time. And the value of that can't be overstated. And I'm sure you do that too. When you showed up at that audition, your rig was bulletproof. I tried to make mine bulletproof. It's just every once in a while I did it. I did all the due diligence. I tested it at home, day after day, showed up at the gig, and the amp blew up. But, so sometimes you can't win anyway. But
to be honest, I mean, I have it's like sometimes I feel like I bite off more than I can chew, because I'm always like hunting for, how could it be better? So like recently I just gone to a parallel setup on my pedal board. So my H90 and my new EVH delay are all in parallel in my amps effects loops. And so I'm having to reprogram everything and kind of do it. And it does sound great. It's awesome. But I'm like, why do I do this to myself sometimes? Because it's like I am tackling, from like almost building from scratch again, a bunch of sounds. And I'm like, why am I always trying to reinvent the wheel with this stuff? Some of my, Mike actually tinkers. I mean, it's like if you go see him, if you've watched over the last 5 years, you'll see his rig evolve, like at the Baked Potato, and he'll bring this and that and this different thing. And now but it always sounds great. I think it's just he puts in enough time at home in the studio or whatever where he knows what he's doing with it. Because I've talked to people that say, I mean, I know Mike and stuff, but I've never asked him, like, how many hours a day do you sit there and work on this? But I've talked to people that say he just plays guitar all the time. He's sitting
Right. And he actually will disassemble his Stratocaster and put it back together. I've heard about him doing that. Yeah. So that's a whole side of him you don't see, but it's going on all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's fascinating. There's my friend Matt Beckley there with us.
I love Matt. Hey, Matt, how are you? Hey.
He says, big fan, long time listener, first time. You're not a first time caller. My question is, how do you guys sort it out when you're both up for the same gig?
Okay, so
hire that guy.
No.
I'm gonna go.
No.
And it's gonna be great. I'll call you later.
I can speak to the truth on that. That chapter of my life is closed. So for me, it's just sessions and the masterclass. So that's not going to happen. But if it did happen, it's just like you and your buddies who are there. Everybody wishes each other, well, and everybody supports each other. Everybody's nervous. Everybody's, trying their best. I remember a great audition I had with Mick Jagger. This was in the late 80s. Do you remember Jimmy Rip, the guitar player Jimmy Rip? Did you ever meet him?
And I know, was this for the Wandering Spirit record?
Well, you'll have to tell me. I'll just tell you what my memory is telling me now, but I forget who they hired. Maybe Frank Symes ended up getting
so it's early 90s. Right. This is like 91.
Okay, great. So I'm down at SIR and I'm playing Jumping Jack Flash with Mick Jagger, and I'm going, this is heavenly. And Mick is the nicest guy in the world. He talks about going, how long it takes him to pee. I got to go to the bathroom, come get me if I don't come back, that kind of thing. Super nice. So it's like, it was really fun and really pleasurable and really easy to do the audition. They did not choose me, but there was somebody right before me and somebody after me. And it was kind of really kind of warm and fuzzy. I mean, it can be like that. It can be really, really a nice thing, and sure. It was okay that I didn't get it. I didn't think I would get it, but I had to try, and it was so pleasurable to be there playing with him. And Kurt Mascara was playing drums, and he did the record. And I remember Jimmy Rip saying to me, "Yeah, you did pretty good. You did good."
Oh man, that's funny. Well, I know Frank did get the gig, and here's some small world stuff for you because I didn't know you then, and I didn't meet you till way later. But I was in a band with Frank right then.
Wow.
Yeah, so he
Wow.
was 36, 37 years old. Here I am, I'm 20, and I had just joined his original band, and he got that Mick Jagger gig, and literally and I just joined his band, and one of the first gigs that we did together was a cover, because we used to play, we were an original band. That was the band that I eventually got a Japanese record deal with in the mid-90s, and ended up writing and recording about 50 tunes, demoing, just slogging it out, just trying to get any kind of record deal. We ended up getting this Japanese deal, but anyways, we also did cover gigs. We would go play because we thought this is good to just play as a band. We can work out our originals a bit, but do, you know, mainly Stones tunes and like all kinds of tunes. And so we had a cover gig out in Corona, and he did his first rehearsal with Mick, and he said, yeah, I've got no, you know, obviously you're wide open for Mick Jagger, no problems, but I do have a gig this night I'd love to keep. Mick, I remember, paid. Mick was so cool. He was like, no problem. He paid to have Cartage bring Frank's amp and PA and everything we needed to do the gig all the way out to Corona that night. So this truck shows up with techs and, you know, probably from mates or something, and breaks out all this gear. And this was, I think, my first gig with his band. And I thought, this is pretty cool. Like Mick Jagger's sending all the gear out here and everything. I'd never seen anything like that. and so that's what A Small World is, because you probably did the audition like the week before that or something. And
yeah,
Frank ends up now Kurt has told me a story about that audition as well, which is a brilliant little bit of, maybe you, I don't know if Kurt was in there playing with just you or if he played with other people, but he told me that he was out in the hallway listening to the other drummers play before he goes in to do it. And he's strategizing like his audition, and he can hear them. He can hear that Mick's like, hey, what do you guys want to do? And calling to like Jumpin' Jack Flash or whatever. People are, let's do this one. Kurt's like, gets in the room, and Mick's like, hey, what would you like to play? And he's like, let's do some James Brown.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Because he's like, he knows he loves James Brown, he knows, you know, and so he like lights up, and he starts busting into a groove of whatever tune, and Mick starts dancing around the room and doing the, you know, and he ends up getting the gig. You know, I was like, that's brilliant, you know, to know what the, yeah, to just make,
yeah, well, that was probably the week before, because at the point where I went in, he had the gig. Yeah. So they probably chose the drummer first, and he won, and he was in the chair. He was super happy. That's brilliant. That is a really great strategy. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just love that he was thinking like, okay, he's been playing Jumpin' Jack Flash for, you know, 30 years at this point, you know, and what if he's going to ask, and I'm going to pick a stone. No, I'm going to do something I know he loves that's maybe a little off. You know, it's also a bit of a risk, I guess. You know, if it wasn't a guy, because I know Mick he's a lovely guy, but somebody could take that as if they had an ego, would you want to play one of my songs? I'm sure they played Stones too, but you know, he said, listen, you want to jam some James Brown? You know, and like, Mick just lit up, and he's like, I have the gig. He knew it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good for him.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh man. This is so much fun. I'm so stoked to see you and be doing this. There's a little super chat there for me.
Yeah, we didn't know how much we had to catch up on, and it's just kind of expanding every minute. Definitely.
I love it. I love it. And I want to ask you, we spoke about it because I watched your live stream that you did yesterday, and I noticed a few things. I noticed some different amps. You got a couple Bad Cats and stuff over to one side of you, I think. And I also noticed your pedal shelf over there.
Yeah.
Possible to see it, but
yeah,
what's going on there with that's new, right?
Yeah, I used to have a Diesel sitting there with some pedals on top of it, and I finally was able to move that out. And a friend of mine, Eric Blackwell, who works at Tom Anderson, made me this incredible pedal shelf. It even has some pretty wood on it, and it's been life-changing to have this palette here, and even the bottom shelf. Like usually the bottom shelf has 3 H9s on it, but those are going out to my session that I'm doing on Tuesday with Sean Hurley, by the way, cool. and Jake Reed. So I'm kind of getting that. There's my pedal board and my H9, my triple H9 pedal board that I'm going to take to the session.
Yep.
And cool. I'll run the H9s with my iPad, and then, but it's usually sitting on the bottom shelf. And then shelf 2 has the Ebo Reverb, recommended by Tom Bukovac. It's a great one, you know.
Oh, cool.
Quite pricey. And then this shelf has a palette of stuff, some delays, and then this. I have way too many delays. Has another, kind of palette of stuff, and it's changing all the time.
I see you
Everything.
got the 202 there.
Yeah, this is cool. The DM101. No, which is the 202? What are you talking about?
Oh, I thought that's what that was called.
Yeah,
that's the boss, right?
Yeah, well, the DM101. The new one.
That's the new one. I actually haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I saw some YouTube videos. They weren't available. I bought the last one on the planet from Spain. There was one in Spain, and I just bought it. And it's interesting. It's expensive. It's an analog delay, and it sounds amazing, but it has all the limitations of an analog delay. The presets are basically carved out of the fact that it's an analog delay. I really respect this thing. It's really, really nice. Cool. So everything is on loops. I'm using a hex, this little miniature looper, and it's on a foot switch. So everything gets bypassed. I can either press the buttons there. So yeah, it's a really wonderful palette. Now we get to my amp switcher, which is by Kahayan. The Ampede is great. I think you probably have the Ampede, right?
I have the Ampede, yeah.
Yeah. And I met the guy who, is it Christian, his name, who runs Ampede? He is actually working at Bad Cat now. He designs the Bad Cat amps. Did you know that?
Oh, Peter, you mean? Maybe.
Peter, yeah. I'm sorry. Peter, who has Ampede, now designs the Bad Cat amps. You knew that. Probably.
That he was there and at least working in somewhat in that capacity for sure. Yeah. And I did a video for one of their amps recently. I thought it was really good. It was a Hot Cat head. You probably have one sitting there.
Yeah, nice. I love it. And then this is a prototype that I'm trying out. And I also have the Lynx, which is their high gain head. I love them. They're really great amps. They're reasonably priced. I am a convert, and that's hard. We fall in love with these amps. I mean, I still love my Divided by 13, love my old Marshalls. I love this Park that's here.
Yeah.
But to have a new amp come out that you really, really like, plus they're just such great people.
You were a Nailer guy, and I know you appreciated that amp. And I got to say that Hot Cat kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Like, it's a nice sort of very rich drive sound that kind of made my Marshall sound a little ratty in comparison. My 50.
Interesting.
It was, yeah. Like I actually thought, oh, I can hear the place for this. Like, this has a very, I don't want to say it was the same as the Nailer, but it like has there was a similarity there in that it was a very rich, very recordable, sort of sophisticated drive sound that I felt like was it's like, this is just nice, Like,
yeah, all their models are great. The other thing I discovered lately is that the effects loop is amazing. Like, you can plug in one guitar pedal to the effects loop, and it sounds perfect and amazing. And so when I go on the session on Tuesday, I'm going to have the 3H9s plugged into the effects loop.
Cool.
It sounds so amazing. It sounds so great.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, not having the post thing. That's kind of my journey too right now, is with I've got the H90 and the EVH delay, which I just love, and I've got two heads back there. I got to pick up my main tour heads from Sir. So they're mismatched older versions of the PT100. My blue panel ones are out at Sir right now, so I got to go get them. But anyways, two heads in stereo with the H90 and the delay in the loop, but I'm running it in parallel with a parallel mixer. So my dry time is always, and it sounds like, man, it sounds good. Like, the control over the delays and stuff is just like, and it just sounds rich as hell. Like, it's really nice sound. So I'm very stoked.
Well, it's still the greatest thing about stereo delay, and I use it at home. I use Echo Boy in Pro Tools all the time. I have it on right now. I wonder if I can. Well, we're not doing a stereo thing, so you can't tell, but the great thing about stereo delay on a guitar is the original signal stays healthy. And the delays are out here, panned hard left and right. And it's just that for any kind of solo stuff, it's just marvelous. Even, we've been doing it for 30 years, but it just blows my mind having hard panned left and right delays on a guitar tone. It's
the greatest thing, man. I remember I saw Steve Vai talking about it a while ago, and he was like, I think he uses an Axe effects in his amps effects loop in stereo to do it. And he's just like, I just like to store a guitar with stereo delay. That's what I like.
Me too. I'm the same.
Yeah,
I'm the same.
The greatest for soloing. It's Fantastic. There's Lauren. He says, I enjoyed seeing you last night. I'm curious. It's been humid here in California. Man, it feels like Puerto Rico outside right now. It's bonkers. Has it messed with your guitars? That's a good question.
Not for me. For me, it's the winter time when I have the heat on in the winter and it gets dry. That's when the wood shrinks a little bit. But no, the humidity in my case has actually been beneficial. It has. Yeah.
It's probably not a bad thing for acoustics and stuff. It definitely changes the guitars. I mean, anytime I ship guitars coast to coast or anything for tour, once they show up, it's like the truss rods all need, they're either
Pete, I mean, if you'll notice, my guitars now, I always leave the truss rod cover off.
That is efficiency right there.
And the reason is it speaks to what you're talking about. Yeah. Every 2 weeks, a guitar can change.
Yeah.
And I like to be, I'll go, what happened? And I go, I know what happened. And I just go like, Grr, and it's back to being great again.
That's what I always tell people. There's only one thing that's going to change. Like, oh, my action's high. Why does my guitar feel? It's like, well, you didn't change the bridge. It's the neck. The neck is moving, and that's the thing. Or it's too low, and I'm fretting out. It's like it's overbowing or underbowing. It's the only thing that shifts on a guitar.
And it's changing all the time. It's changing by the day sometimes.
It's a tree. It's moving. It's alive. Especially a Les Paul. I mean, anything mahogany. Maple necks tend to be a little more stable, I find. My original PT signature guitars, they have a mahogany neck, and it's a fairly thin neck, and those guitars, for sure, you got to change or at least check. Now they don't have a cover, so it's nice because you can get to the rod. But man, I've been mid-song and done a truss rod adjustment on tour. Like, I'll run over to my tech, the bridge is breakdown or something. I'll run over, give me the wrench. I'm like, back out, check my tuning. Last chorus, let's go. It drives me crazy when there's something about my own guitar when I know, like, it's my signature guitar. I know exactly the way it's supposed to feel when it is perfect, and when it's not, it drives me nuts. So it's like sometimes I'll do like this is. I don't want to play the back half of this song like this. I'll go, there it is, perfect. And it's just part of life. Got it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am constantly adjusting. Anytime I get a guitar from any company or anything, I put the gauge of strings I love on it, and I start adjusting the truss rod, and I lower the action as much as possible. Yeah. And my thing with guitars is as long as they don't fret out up here. Yeah. And guitars are pretty great these days. Most of them don't, but sometimes they'll still be. Even a new expensive guitar will fret out up here, and I have to take it. I have a couple of specialists. I love Norik Renson, but the other one is Mark Van Gool. And Mark is generally too busy to do anything. Yeah. But I'll leave him a guitar, and sometimes I'll leave it for weeks on end. And he is the guitar whisperer, and he'll kind of just take down the frets just a little bit up here and solve that problem. But yeah, Mark is otherworldly in his abilities. Yeah.
He's so smart. He's so smart, dude. I was on an airplane with him once. And this is just a quick Mark Van Gool. This guy, not only does he do that, I mean, he's just one of the smartest people. He was a day trader for a while, and did that for a year. I'm sitting on an airplane with him once, and he looks out the window and he looks at the wing and he goes, "I used to work on those." And I go, "What do you mean? Work on what?" And he goes, "Well, the engine on them." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I used to work for the regional jet company that designed those engines. I used to work on those engines." And I'm like, "What the? Like, how do you have time to do all this stuff?"
Well, and the last time I had him fix that problem, and it was on a very expensive guitar that shouldn't have had the problem. Yeah. He said, "Yeah, I made a file." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I made a file that I used." Like he made an actual tool.
He didn't buy it.
He didn't buy it.
That sounds like him. He's a brilliant cat. He's so smart. We needed a tech in short order recently for the tour I was just on. I called Mark and I said, "I know you're probably not available to come out last minute, but do you know anybody?" Because I knew he would recommend. Well, he recommended a guy named Dave. Dave couldn't do it. Dave recommended someone else. And so even 2 people removed, we got a fellow named Jake that came out that was just a killer.
Oh, that's great.
Great tech. He totally knocked it out of the park. HH there with a super chat says, "I want wet, dry, wet, EVH delay detune using like Headrush FRFRs or a PA? Should I get a Helix floor or save for an Axe FX 3? Well, or is there a cheaper way? Well, the cheaper way would probably be to just get the EVH delay and the pitch factor from Eventide, put them both in a parallel mixer, and go. That would be the way. If you just want that sound, that's the way to do the EVH delay and detune with just those units. But you can kind of simulate it in something like a Helix or an Axe FX. So you can go any of those ways. That's my answer to that. Did you ever do the wet, dry, wet thing? Did you ever try?
No,
It
we
wouldn't
never
really
did.
apply to your. I mean, you do it every day with the Echo Boy. I mean, if you're playing a guitar and you're doing it in the box in the same.
And I take the opposite view live. When I play live, I go so minimal. I mean, literally amp, speaker, pedal board.
Keep it simple.
Just because, you have to pay attention to your limits. And, I know your limits include endless hours of building a new rig for a tour. You're willing to work really hard for 6 hours, vetting everything you need to vet on your pedal board and your amps to like tweak, that's not really, I'd never really had that particular ability. So I go simple when I play live. And
well, sometimes that's absolutely the best call, not even the right call or a call. It's the best call, because I've used the example many times with Stuart Smith when I was playing with Don Henley, and I actually did use a wet, dry, wet rig. And I learned that is the wrong rig for that gig, because it's much more important when you're in a band with 2 keyboard players and 2 guitar players and background singers and all this sound to find your little spot in the mix. And it's actually kind of, when you think about Eagles music, that's what, it's like a couple guitar sounds, and they were using little Fender amps and stuff and Tweed Deluxes and things. And that's the appropriate thing for that. For that.
Yeah, in that music, there's going to be a little zone over here in the stereo spread where the guitar needs to exist. Just this little channel. And so
it's great because you can hear it. It's very
exactly. So yeah,
what do you do with that? In a context like that, there's already piano and stuff going on. It's like, you're not going to fit. So
I want to answer this question that is in the super chat from Javier. He's trying to figure out how to do effects loops with the amp switcher, and my answer is you really can't. You have to just pick one amp to run your effects loop stuff with. I don't know how you would spread. You'd have to have another switcher to switch the effects from different amps. And
the MP has one. It has a loop, but it's a lot of. Here's the caveat. It's like basically you have to hook up each of your amps effects loops, send and return to the MP, and then you hook up the main effects to the effect loop on the MP. Does that make sense? So
that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
So you can take the PT-15 Hedgehog, a couple others, and you're going to need a send and return cable for every single one of those going to the MP, and then the master send return from the MP go to your effects, and then any of the amps it's actually switching in, and it seemed like beyond what I wanted to do.
So Javier, if you are really interested in this, you have to take a deep breath and switch from the Cahayan to the Ampede. Now, Pablo Cahayan is a friend of mine. One of the reasons I use his gear is because he's a friend. I've been to his tiny shop in his tiny village in Spain. And I love his products. I've recommended them to a lot of people. But the Ampede stuff is crazy overbuilt and crazy. It's more expensive. And, without saying it, I mean, it's the Ampede stuff is a different level. It really is. I'm not going to switch to Ampede, but just the Ampede stuff's brilliant. I mean, it's so that's your answer.
It's a lot of the effects that you're going to, if you're just in a studio situation, I mean, I find like, well, why would I do it necessarily? Like, I can generally get what I want, like you're doing with Echo Boy, out of a plug-in and do it in the DAW or do an H3000 or do any of that stuff in the computer. So that's why I just record the pure amp, and then effects loops for me are mainly a live consideration.
Well, and on Tuesday, I'll use it in the studio because the delays I put through that effects loop are going to sound amazing.
Well,
And
you're
the
in a
micro-
studio where you want to deliver a completed sound to
Exactly.
This
Yeah.
is how I want the part to sound, and
Yeah.
then you're going to leave, and you don't have the computer, and
Yeah.
it's not your
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. But I'm with you. When I do stereo delays, it's always in the DAW. That's how I do it now. It's just because that's where I'm always sitting. Yeah, at home, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then you can get your exact, and you can go and revisit it in the mix and it's just great. You don't print it. There's no reason to, because everything that you can do with a pedal or an H90 or all that stuff is available in plugins. So it's like, just do it in the computer. That's the way. I mean, Eddie Van Halen. Okay, well, by balance, Eddie Van Halen was actually recording the full rig with 3 cabinets and actually recording Wet, Dry, Wet. But up till then, when we talk about the 1984 guitar sound or 5150 or those different records where he went stereo, all that was just done at the console with the, they're recording the amp and then using the send on the console out to a rack mount H3000, coming back into the returns, and right. So
that's good to know. Hey, I just really, really quick, I'm looking at one of my rain gutters right now out the window, and it's overflowing like crazy. Yeah. Oh my. Yeah, this is a big rain.
It is a big rain. I wonder. Well, we'll go further. Do you have time to stay for a little bit?
Oh, I do. Yeah. I do.
Okay. If you can let me know if you got a split, but I'm going to check outside in a little bit too. So I just want to make sure my car didn't float away.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good till 1. I have a guy coming to visit me who just flew into LAX and he's headed over. So
that's perfect.
I'm good till 1.
Let's just mention it once again, guys. Down in the video description is a link to Tim's masterclass. Tim is offering the masterclass for a reduced price right now, and you can click on the link in my video description, and it's going to get you an awesome. I mean, if you want to take a guitar lesson, it's like you could do, a private lesson with a good guitar player for what Tim's offering his masterclass for a year for, I think, right? And so it's like, access to all those lessons. It's just like there's no. I want to do it. I want to sit there and work on your,
Well, yeah, you'll do it when you're in a hotel somewhere and it's raining outside in Brussels or, Wisconsin, wherever you're sitting, you should check into it then. But yeah, it's just, and like I said, the free trial makes it completely, you have 2 weeks to figure out if you want to stay in or not. And I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to this thing. And it's just, you can't find. The one thing I really like about it, you really can't find where it ends, because it's like almost 2,000 videos. It's over 150 hours of lessons. They keep adding to it. So
amazing.
It's pretty big now.
How many videos?
It's over 1,800 videos. I just added 35. So it's getting near 2,000 videos.
That is unbelievable. That is so much work. Oh my God. 2,000 videos. That's incredible. That's incredible. So you can get access to, I'm not saying this just from a salesy perspective. I'm seriously knocked out. That's unbelievable. So you get access to 2,000 videos for, well, go click in the link. You can see the discount and stuff.
Yeah. Now, I mean, they are like between 3 to 7 minutes each. So that's the,
that's beautiful, because it's a little bite-sized chunk of something you can work on.
Yeah.
Get overwhelmed. I remember you making a great point about like talking about how you can get overwhelmed watching all these guitar videos and things on YouTube these days and stuff. And even like within one video, it can be like, this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you said, just take away one thing from, if you're sitting there watching a lesson, even if you just get like a little, oh, that's a unique way to bend, or one little phrase or a concept, like just take that away and absorb it, and build up, right?
That's my approach with, let's say, Mark Lettieri or Matteo Sasato.
Right.
I find one thing I can grab and I integrate that into my vocabulary. Same thing with Sean Tubbs. I spent about a week trying to integrate a Sean Tubbs lick into an Allman Brothers solo that I was doing on YouTube. And it was pretty great, because I couldn't quite do his thing, but it made it into my vocabulary. And it was just one lick. I did the same thing with, I can't think of his name. Anyway, these virtuoso guitar players, Rick Graham, same thing with Rick Graham. I actually had trouble learning the lick at half speed.
Wow.
And it still was really beneficial and ended up in my vocabulary. So just grab one little thing. Hey, one quick question. I'm going to go see Big Rec and Ian Thornley on December 7th at the Troubadour. Are you going to be around for that?
Let's go together.
Well, I'm going with Rick. Rick Springfield asked me to go with him.
Oh,
So
well,
I'll see you, I'll see you down there. And you know, Rick is like that. He'll go see Tommy Emmanuel. He'll go
Cool.
see. I mean, he's a guitar nerd, total guitar nerd. So
God, I'd love to see. I didn't even know they were playing the Troubadour. I'm totally going to go to that.
yeah, it's December 7th, and yeah, let's meet up. Definitely, we'll meet up. I'll probably going to having dinner somewhere beforehand, but I'll meet you at the show.
Okay. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean,
he's your friend. He's your friend,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, I haven't talked to him much. He did the show a while ago. I haven't had a lot of contact with him recently, just because I haven't had a lot of contact with anybody recently, but just everybody's so busy with their lives. But the last time I saw them was fantastic, and he's just an unbelievable. Unbelievable. As great as his guitar playing is, when you hear him sing live, you're just like, what? Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah. His voice live is so powerful. So that'll be killer.
Yeah, I will see you there. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do that for sure. Peter says, hey, Pete and Tim, can you guys talk about power conditioning? I wonder about that in your studio. Do you use anything the mains before any gear gets plugged in?
You go first.
I don't have anything special here, and I kind of wonder. So you tell me.
The way it was described to me once is that all of these devices, like if you look at the rack, you look at the pedals, and you even look at the amps, basically it's pulling the load of a bunch of clock radios, basically. In other words, there's not a lot of electricity being pulled by most of this stuff. Now, maybe the amps, maybe I'm wrong about the amps. Maybe the amps do pull a lot of electricity. What I do is I find, and sometimes it's trial and error, I have a power strip that can handle about 50% of it. And then I have another power strip that takes the other 50%. So I have it split off of two power strips, basically.
Okay.
And I think my power in this house barely, because I used to flip the breaker once in a while, but now I don't anymore. So it's having the right power strip is everything. And I have it split over two really, really good power strips. And sometimes you'll buy what seems to be the best, most robust power strip, and it won't be able to handle everything.
That's
so
interesting. Yeah, I have a radial here that my studio gear is plugged into, like my mic pre's and interface and stuff. And then there's just a trip light that all the amps are into, basically, or most of them.
Well, that's you have real stuff. So that's Peter.
Standard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never running more than a couple at a time, though. So it's like I never, we do have problems around here with the tripping the breaker every now and then, but it ain't from that. It'll be from the running the microwave and the fridge at the same time or something, and then it'll trip a breaker, But I do wonder about it. Like, there's this thing called a kikasui that is Japanese made. You see it in professional touring racks. Angus Young, I think Chris Shiflett has one in his rack. It'll go anywhere in the world and do conditioning as well as filtering, as well as converting the voltage from, if you can just plug 240 into it and it'll go to 120 or whatever, you can use it as a step up or step down transformer as well, but they're really expensive. I think Joe Bonamassa uses them too on his amp. So there's got to be something to it. All these guys are getting it, but Kikasui, I think is what it's called. But
I love this stuff. If you actually, one of the things I love about our world these days, and it's one thing if you're on a tight budget and you can't really think about this esoteric stuff, but if you have an interest in it, it's really wonderful to just dive into the really esoteric stuff. It really is. Like maybe your monitors, like I have these favorite monitors. They're called Adam S3As, and they don't make them anymore. And a studio was going out of business recently and selling a pair of them. And so now I have them for the client and for me. And it's stuff like that. It's so pleasurable to buy the best version of the best thing if you want to. If that's what you want, just do it.
Monitoring is monitoring. I consider that to be, I mean, if I don't have and I use Adams as well. I've got A7Xs in here. Those ones you've got would be probably too big for my setup, but I've got the small versions of those. I love them. I mean, they just, when I know what's going on, and when I get on a set of monitors where I don't know what's happening, that is terrifying. Like if I'm
terrifying.
yeah, I like these don't sound. I can tell they don't sound anything like what I'm used to, and that's instantly everything goes out the window. So monitoring is so important. It's like that's one of the most important pieces of gear you can have.
Absolutely, absolutely.
DS says, bring back the Tim and Pete show. We're doing it right now. This is it. We're living in the present.
You know, it was so hard to get people. You know, the phrase "herding cats" is getting these guitar players that we love to actually, you know, get on our schedule was so difficult sometimes, and getting our schedules to work together was so difficult. I remember that. What we really wanted. We really wanted a company to actually be the umbrella and do all the logistics and have us show up, but we never quite made that happen.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe anybody out there interested? Mr. I don't know, Fender, Mr. Roland, no, I don't know. Maybe we should at least do this like once every 6 months or something, though, you know, because
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
We don't need no stinking companies. We got it ourselves. Well,
you know, and lately I really like representing companies without them knowing it. Sometimes I love just buying a piece of gear and surprising the company with a video about it. And you're always the most credible representative of a piece of gear in the world. I mean, I've gotten so much. I mean, we all depend on you.
Well,
to show us this stuff.
Thank you, but you too. I mean, when you talk about something, it's because you really like it. Because generally speaking, you're doing it because it's if it's made it into your hands and you're talking about it in a video, then people can rest assured it's
well. And then we all have this. Sweetwater is the best company in the world for taking us seriously as people who make videos, and they're great too. I have to shout out to Sweetwater for.
I totally agree. Like, you know, some people are like, man, Sweetwater this, Sweetwater that. It's like, hey, man, they do such a good job at what they do, to be honest. It's just like they've been a great partner to a lot of us, to me, to you. And if you're just purchasing something from them, your customer service is going to be, you know, I'm saying Sweetwater not sponsoring this or anything. I've really thought about this a lot in the last little while. And it's like they deserve to be where they are because they do a good job. You know, you buy something from them, there's a problem, you can send it back. You got a question, you can hit them up. It's like they're there, you know, they're present. If they've just done it's harder to be a mom and pop music store these days for sure, have a smaller operation because you're competing with that. And that's going to be difficult. But the reality is they do a great job. So I don't know, you know, it's like
well, and the thing about them for me is that if I get a piece of gear for them that I want to feature in a video, they are beyond hands off. They have they're completely hands off. So it's having, you know, not having any expectation makes it so pleasurable. I mean, they couldn't be more hands off. It's incredible. Yeah.
We want you for you to do what you do, and they get that. And when you meet the guys there, like these guys, Josh and Ryan, the guys that work there, they're just totally cool. And, so I'm going to grab a couple quick questions here, and then there's super chats. And if Tim's got to go, I'll stick around for a bit and answer. Because I know sometimes when we get talking and stuff, it prevents from answering the questions and stuff. So I promise at the end, if Tim has got to run in a few minutes, I'll get into a few of these. But how do you keep a Floyd Rose bridge on a guitar in tune? That's kind of their selling point, is that they stay in tune. So if it's not staying in tune, my first thing that I look at on a Floyd, I don't know about you, Tim, but I look at the knife edges on the Floyd, if it's sticking, and that often these days is the case where they have either worn or even right from the factory, they can get a little sticky sometimes.
Well, and you have to make sure it's, what's the word? It's laying flat. It's not tilted up a little or tilted down a little bit.
Yeah.
You might have shifted with the springs in the back or the string gauge or the neck or whatever. That to me is absolutely important. It has to be knife edge straight. So yeah, those two things.
Yeah, knife edge straight. And then if it's sticking, like if you push down and you find the pitch is diving down, you go up and it's like on the tuner, it looks like now you're a little sharp. Well, your knife edges are sticking. That's the most common thing. And then you got to get somebody who knows what they're doing with a Dremel to go in and polish them and get them super good, you know. I'm going to hit this one in a bit. Jason, remind me again, but without using names, can you talk about what happened with the tech situation on the tour that you just referenced? Which one was it, Jason? Ask me again down in the chat in a bit, and I'll get to that. Is it the tour that I was just on, or just not sure? Just grabbing a few of the. Somebody was asking about Steve Lukather's tone, shiny tones. They said, "How do you get those Steve Lukather shiny tones?" I'm sure you did sessions with Steve back in the day.
Well, yeah, back in the day, I mean, he bought every piece of rack gear that was available at that point. And of course, he had the Tri-Stereo Chorus, and then he had the TC-1210. So it would depend on what year.
Didn't he do a circular delay thing in the Lex too, Lexicon?
Sir, yeah, he had the PCM 70s also. So when you say shiny tones, certainly the circular delay was for leads, basically. So yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right about that. Like if you hear him play on Don Henley's record or that early Earth, Wind and Fire stuff where he's just blazing through solos. There's even one on the Lionel Richie song that Rick Beato pointed out the other day. The PCM 70 circular delay was very tastefully just spinning and widening, kind of the same thing we use Echo Boy for. But if you're talking about rhythm parts, a stereo rhythm sound, the way he used to work before, and it's kind of, when I moved here, I got to work with him like right away. It was kind of crazy on a David Garfield Charisma record. And this was Toto's biggest era. Steve, for rock tones, had a pair of Marshalls with 412s, and then for rhythm tones, he had a pair of Rivera Deluxes. So, but then the rack would go out in stereo just in front of these devices, in front of these amps. So his rack was basically like a pedal board, and whatever, however they figured out how to. Well, wait a second though. Maybe he did have effects loops in the actual Deluxes. Maybe they went in. Rivera did effects loops. Check me on this because I'm not sure. Anyway, the short answer is all of those pristine tones were his rack through his Rivera Deluxes all through the 80s. Those were all the clean tones. And then when he would do a solo, he would plug into his pair of Marshalls with 412s. Do you agree on my assessment? Well,
I'd have to ask Friedman because he actually teched for him and set up stuff a lot, so he would know. But that would be later, a little bit later in the 90s, early 90s, so he might have changed by then. But
yeah, he would. Yeah, he changed.
He's probably got a perspective on what Bradshaw was doing. I mean, maybe Bradshaw was loading the amps though and doing a power amp thing with stereo. It's hard to like.
Well, not when I started working with him. That came a few years later. That was after, I think probably Mike Landau was the first to do that, and Steve did it 1 minute later. Because they're best friends. So, but the era that I'm talking about, no, there was no slaving going on. This was early mid 80s, and
which is a more raw.
Yeah,
tone. Which is really cool. Yeah, I mean, some of the greatest, those tones on the Toto records and everything else that he did.
Yeah.
Have you ever, let's see, thin neck on a 335 or similar bends out of tune when playing? Yeah, I mean, that's a common SG problem too, with the neck joint and the thinner, right? And the 24 3/4, it all lends itself to the scale, the thinner neck, mahogany. And you can literally take an SG and pull on it and you can go, it's like a whammy bar. I don't know if you've had that happen a lot, or
my 335 has a thin neck that I really love, but I probably am not as aggressive with it. I might suggest trying to change your style a little so that you're not pulling on it while you're playing. Because I actually like the thin necks. I've settled on the 1960 Les Paul. I'm obsessed with the 1960 Les Paul reissues because it's got the V2 thin slim taper neck. And my 335, that is, I believe in 1963, has the same slim taper neck. I'm in love with the kind of neck you're talking about, but I don't have the bending. I forget to bend. I mean, it's a great effect to actually get, to go like this on a 335 and have a little bit of vibrato happen from that bend. So my suggestion, if you like the guitar, maybe just try and lighten up. I don't know about you, Pete, but
I think that's good advice. Get the nut checked is my other one on Gibsons to make sure, as far as tuning goes, they got to be cut just right so you don't have tuning issues, and also that they're just in the exact right place. My 335, I always had problems with tuning when it had its second headstock break. which was after I became the owner. It had one before I got it, and then it had a second break. I had to go get it fixed, got it done. Still wasn't quite right. At that point, I took it to Norick, and Norick looked at the nut on it. He said, I think the nut might be slightly, who knows with brakes and stuff where you're at, So he said, I think I can build this nut out a little bit and it'll be better, because wherever the nut is, he didn't feel like the nut to the first fret or whatever was in the exact right place. So he built it out with a little strip of graphite on the front of the nut. And now that guitar just tunes better than it ever did before the headstock breaks. So there's some considerations, this is not exactly what this fella's saying. He's saying bending out of tune, but I agree with Tim that it's just it's also part of the 24 3/4 scale thing. Like, you're not going to find it as much on a Tele or Strat. You get a shorter scale with the strings, it's like more crucial that everything's a little slinkier, and you push hard and it'll bend out of tune easier and all that kind of stuff. The longer the scale you go, this is why with a baritone guitar, the scale gets longer and they're more taut, and it's more like you hit the low string and it's like a piano. It's got to do scale length and stuff. So it's
let me be humble here for a second with Angel Vox 1 and say I had a bad habit for years that I couldn't figure out. So I would watch people playing Les Pauls for like decades, and they would play them perfectly in tune. And every time I tried to play Gibson, the G string would go out of tune constantly. So my workaround, I would use a Van Halen guitar with a Floyd Rose or a Tom Anderson or a PRS that stayed in tune. Only now, late in life, do I keep Gibsons in tune. So I spent my whole life with a habit playing too hard or whatever I was doing. My G string would go out of tune on any Gibson I played, no matter what. And so here I am telling you to change your style, but I think I was just gripping too hard or playing too hard or picking too hard or something. And you're right, maybe the nut wasn't right on some of these guitars, but I would see people in the middle of a hot afternoon at a festival playing Gibsons perfectly in tune, like Lynyrd Skynyrd or any, and go, how is this possible? I can't even keep my G string in tune under perfect circumstances. Believe me, I know what you're talking about. I've had so much trouble with that. I had a PV Van Halen guitar that I would use instead of a Les Paul because it had a great Floyd Rose on it. It was one that I got at Guitar that apparently Eddie Van Halen actually owned. Like a fool, I sold it. I wish I still had it, but it was, the PV version. No, the Music Man version. That's it, the Music Man. And that guitar was my Les Paul for a long time because it had a Floyd Rose and it stayed perfectly in tune. And the bridge went hard back against the body. So yeah. Anyway,
I have one, man. I recently, I'm going to show you a crazy story that I still have to make a video about. And it's just one of those things I haven't done yet. But
yeah, that's the one. I had it. I had it. Oh, amazing. No, mine was red. Mine was red.
Oh, cool. Red. This is just a beautiful guitar, man. I mean, it's this belonged to a fellow named Simon Legg, and I still consider it his guitar in the UK, and I'll tell the story of it sometime soon. But he was just a lovely guy. It's a long story how this fell into my hands, but it's a terrific guitar. I mean, it's kind of interesting because the more modern, the EVH version has a flatter radius and now a little bit wider neck and stuff, and they're a little different. This one is the neck supposedly on these they got off his Kramer.
Oh,
that was what it was digitized off of, and so it's a kind of a thinner, well, not thin this way, but the nut it's not real wide, this neck.
Right.
I would say a 12-inch radius, so it's not a super shreddy. They're great. I mean, I love these.
Well, that guitar was my Les Paul in the studio throughout the 90s because I knew, we would get a track and it was always in tune. So
yeah, man.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. They tune great. And it's one thing that I do with a Les Paul that I've noticed. I can offer this one. If you're just tuning to a tuner and you tune the B string and it looks in tune on a tuner, I find often if I fret it the third fret, it looks like the D note on the third fret of the B. It will look sharp. And I don't know what that is. It's something to do with the 24 3/4. But on a Les Paul, I tend to check that and that third fret D note on the B string, and I'll tune to that. I'll tune that a little. So sometimes it means the open looks a little flat. It's like the Eddie Van Halen thing, cheating the B down a little bit, and it makes the chord sound more consonant and in tune, I find, but a little less dramatic than what he did, which was bring it way down. But the just the balance between the G string and the B string, because sometimes you can feel like the G is a little flat or something, but it's actually like the B is just steady, steely in tune, and then the as I'm getting, I've just noticed that it looks on the tuner like it's sharp when I'm fretting the B on the other. So I'll just tune the B a little flat, and then it's like, oh, everything sounds a little more. Just a weird little cheat that I do on a.
That is a great tip. Yeah, I'm going to
some-
try that actually. That is a great tip.
See what you think. I'd be interested to see what you think. I find when the open note, it looks like it's in tune or just a little flat, and then I fret the and it's like in tune, and this is at the third fret. It happens all the time to me. So I'm often tuning that note, or I'll just do it by ear. I'll just listen to the open G, and then the okay, yeah, I cheated a little in it, and then it just the whole thing seems more in tune to me. But
that's a great tip.
Yeah, it's just something I found. There's I'm sure you got a split. You can go anytime. Just to let us know. I'm just grabbing these super chats here and stuff. This is great. We got 660 people online almost. So
yeah, thanks everybody. I should go. Thanks so much for checking out the masterclass, Pete. Thanks for being the greatest human being on the planet. We all, I always go. I'd love to meet your parents because.
Oh, thanks.
You are the best. You are the best. So
you're the best, man. I miss you, and it's really good to see you. And I'm glad we're doing this. And so everybody, Tim, the reason if you didn't catch, just to hang, of course, is one reason, but also to say that there's a link down in the video description below to Tim's masterclass because he's offering it for a reduced price for about 30 days, I think. And there's going to be an active link down in the video description. So there now you can click there, go check it out. I didn't realize he's got almost 2,000 videos in his masterclass now. That you pay this one price, you get access for a year, and you get 2,000 videos. It's like a no-brainer. It's unbelievable. I can't believe the amount of work you put in. I remember when you did the masterclass. This was a 2-year process of you making content when you started your YouTube channel, building up to the point where you released the masterclass. It was so brilliant. And one of the things about you is your visionary and your dedication and to get to doing, you can see things 2 years out. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. Here's the plan. It's going to be a lot of work. There's going to be no financial anything involved for a couple of years. And then I'm going to execute this plan and it's going to be good. And that's what you did. It's unbelievable,
Well, it's funny. I started doing sessions in 1980. I moved here in 1979. So but by about 2010, after doing sessions for 30 years, the landscape started to change. And then I discovered Marty Schwartz, Mike from Mike Strum's lessons, and Scott from Scott's bass lessons, a few other people who were doing the online teaching thing. And I thought, okay, how do I want the next 30 years to play out? This is actually probably what I should do next. And my philosophy was always just to try and do one thing at a time. So the session thing was one thing. I did it to death. I still do it. And then this is the other one thing. And I think you're probably kind of the same as me in that you are a professional guitar player, busy all the time. And then you have the other one thing, which is your online thing. And in life, it's better not to do 5 things. It's better to do 2 things. Okay. So you put a family and a relationship in, and now I've got 3 things, You don't have space in your life for 5 things, but maybe you've got space in your life for 3 things, and that's family, family and marriage is one of those 3, know.
But I definitely think dividing it up, like you say, and having a little bit of diversity has been key. The folks I know that were just all in on sessions, or the folks that I know that were just all in on touring as their only source of and maybe doing well, but something happens like the pandemic, or something happens like the session landscape changes. Now you're all your eggs in that basket. And so it's really brilliant that
well, and even without the change in the music business, the Tommy Tedesco, I think he gets credit for this quote where he said, who's Tommy Tedesco? Get me Tommy Tedesco. Get me a young Tommy Tedesco. Who's Tommy Tedesco? That is the truest thing there is as far as having a career in, and it's the same with actors, with anybody. It's like, who is this guy? Get me that guy. Get me a younger version of that guy. Who's that guy?
As it should be. We got to leave room for the new cats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, right.
Yeah.
As we get up, but trying to, we just want to prolong it, right? As long as possible.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, as long as possible. As long as
Yeah.
possible. We want
Exactly.
to stay away from that last. I don't mind the get me a younger phase.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to prolong that as long as possible, and maybe be like, hey, I still got it. You don't
No,
need to
I think what it is at a certain point, if you're independent enough, the idea is you transcend that whole thing. I mean,
Right.
he was in a system that you're, you know, if you create your own, like I like to describe my business as a kiosk in the mall. It's mine, basically.
Yeah.
And you've created your own standalone business, and that's the idea. And I think that's the great thing about the new world. People know that you kind of have to do it yourself, and once you do it yourself, nobody can turn off the spigot. Nobody. So you're in control. So
Yeah.
anyway, guys, thank you so much. We should do this again. We'll do it regularly. This will be the new Tim and Pete show.
Oh, dude, if you want as often, anytime as you want to come on, please come on the show, or I'll do something with you on your channel. I mean, we should do more because I just always love this. So much fun.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it on my show next time, my live stream next time. It's on me next time. My treat.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right, everybody.
I'm going to stick around, folks, and keep answering some questions and stuff. So I'm not going anywhere. Don't sign off. But Tim, we'll see you hopefully soon.
See you soon, guys. Thanks everybody for showing up.
How great is he? God, man, I miss him. When we do this, it's so much fun. You know, I just always love doing the show with Tim, and it was really just a matter of just logistics and stuff. When we were doing Tim and Pete show, it was pre this live stream stuff, and it's so much easier to do these now and kind of hang and do these. You know, now that live streaming became a more I mean, we forget, but it's like it's about 5 years that we've been doing this live streaming stuff for, at least since I got into it, and it's just so much more efficient now. We used to record the show and edit it, and it was lots of editing and it just sort of it became like a bit of a monster that we just couldn't keep it all going. But we'll do this more often. I'll make an effort to have Tim on more often and maybe do something on his channel as well. And anyways, let's see what else we got here. Some more. This one I didn't even get to, this live stream right here. Brian Cummings wanted to get a transparent reverb sound for recording. Amp as spring. I want to stick a Lexicon style reverb on top of it. Where to start? Well, it just depends, Brian, if your amp has an effects loop or not. If it doesn't have a loop, then you're a little bit stuck. What you're going to want to do is record it and then do something in the DAW. And you can get even Lexicon offers plugins. So, you can get a plugin and do it in the DAW. But if you want to record the sound, if you're playing clean, like really clean, with say a clean Fender style amp or something, you can put something like an H9 in front and run the reverb into the clean sound. It can sound quite great, and dimensional and more transparent than a spring. But if you're cranking up at all or getting any kind of overdrive going, then it quickly starts to blow up that reverb, and you're going to want to run the reverb post the front end of the amp somehow. So it just depends on if your amp has an effects loop. That would be the place to put it. Or if not, you want to record the amp and then do it, in the DAW within a plugin is generally the way that people would do it. So many great reverb plugins these days, from Altiverb to the Lexicon stuff to, I've got Eventide, SB 2016, all kinds of plugins. Tiago, thank you for the super chat there. And let's see, what a duo. Thank you. Love all these great stories. What are some of your favorite venues to go see live music in your area? Man, yeah, I tell you what, just being out on tour with Five for Fighting, I learned that there's so many great venues in this country, but unfortunately, LA doesn't have a lot of them. I mean, there's some good ones. We've got a lot of older theaters in LA, the Orpheum downtown. There's some nice venues, but it's like there's some amazing venues in like DC and I always remember the Norva in Norfolk, Virginia. It's probably still there. That was just a great place to see a concert. In LA, House of Blues went away a little while ago, and that was a drag. A few years it's been gone now. But there's still a good House of Blues in Anaheim, so that's a good place to see a show. I saw Wolf Van Halen play there recently with Alter Bridge. Tim was mentioning that Big Rex playing the Troubadour. That'll be a fun show. The Troubadour is like not a fancy venue, but it's a legendary venue, and it's a fun place to see a show. I always like going there to see a gig. Parking's a bit of a nightmare, but anyways. Let's see here, some super chats. Caliber P says, just want to say thanks to both of you. Signed up for Tim's masterclass about a month ago. That's awesome. Love it in the way that Tim explains things, not least the many psychological aspects of the playing. See, I want to get into that. I haven't done it yet, so masterclass. So I got to get into it. I got to get into it. Absolutely. Let's see. We used to have the Warner Theater in DC. I think I played the Warner Theater, maybe with Don Henley. I seem to remember. Why isn't Toto in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Why isn't many, great artists in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It's crazy, It's like, it's just at the end of the day, it's a popularity, it's some people picking that. They can be in your own personal rock. We should start our own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Pete and Tim's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Toto will be the first band inducted. Let's see here. Clem says, I love that you guys are open to so many products, especially in the modeling world and digital. I don't care if artists are not open. Yeah, I don't care as long as I get the job done and get the sound. Tim's always been like, big user of the Line 6 Echo Park delay, just a simple little echo pedal that he felt like had a great Memory Man style sound. And I agree, it's one of the best sounding Memory Man style delays out there. If it sounds good, it is good. And if it helps you get your job done in style, that's what really matters. Yep. Okay, I'm going to keep going rapid fire here for a little bit. Talk Sweetwater into opening a guitar superstore in Los Angeles. It's not a bad idea, actually. Giant store in Fort Wayne, lots of LA guitar shops. Part of the reason why they're in Fort Wayne is because of the, it was this place to set up shop originally where it was very easy for business. I don't think there's state tax. There was a lot of incentives. There's nothing going on in Fort Wayne, really that's bigger than Sweetwater. Sweetwater went there when there was, there's not much going on. It's a small city. And that was the incentive. To set up in California is much more difficult. I love California, and I'm not a bash California guy, but it's a more difficult place for business. To set up. To ask anybody that manufactures things here, it's just tough. California's a tough state because it's sprawling and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of concerns. It's almost like a country, and it's just a difficult thing. State revenues and stuff like that are raised enough to make the state function. It's just part of, not bashing California. I love California once again. It's just a difficult when you got 35, 40 million people in one state. And, it's difficult. It should be its own country. I mean, it's literally got an economy that's like this. It wasn't like the 6th or 7th or something biggest economy in the world is California. If it was its own country, it would be bigger than a lot of, it's like, probably Italy and, bigger economy. So anyways, it's a tough state. Some people call it ungovernable. And that makes it tough to set up businesses. It's just, there's a lot of regulation and stuff. And it just is what it is. Let's see. What else? Ben Tom says he had a Luke model for about a week, couldn't get with the neck. Is it kind of a thinner neck on Luke's Music Man? Cool looking guitar. What's everyone's favorite neck radius? I like it either on Gibson guitars. I like a 12. On modern, kind of like my signature guitar is a 10 to 14. I also really like the Sur 9 to 12 though. I've got a couple Surs that are 9 to 12, and that's got a great. It's amazing how much like a little bit more vintage the 9 to 12 is. It's just a really, if you want a strap from Sur or a Telly or something, you want it to not feel like too much of a modern shredder, but you want it to have some modern playability. Like a good kind of middle ground between like vintage 7.5 radius, which is really, it's harder to get the low action, do the, minor third bends with that radius. But it can feel good down low. The 9 to 12 is a great kind of compromise. Sorry, there were some questions here for Tim that he's gone, obviously, but let's see. Chris says bought his old 96 R4 gold top. Best deal online at the time. Do you remember that guitar? That's it. Sorry, man, that we missed that. It's an interesting question, though. It's like the older custom shop Gibsons. That'd be pretty early custom shop compared to kind of the newer stuff. It's interesting. I noticed that because I had a 2002 or 3 or 1 gold top R7, and they got better at the gold later on. Like after 2013 or so, the gold got really, it's like, oh, it's got that slightly different, it's like less bright and a little more of the old gold. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. People out there, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a gold top aficionado, I'm sure. I said, I'm sure. Yeah. Rob says, thank you for the special show. Always heard you should plug everything into what? Plug everything into everything. See what happens. Ben Coombs says, just a heads up, he's live tonight at 8 p.m. Check out Ben's show for sure. And I'm going to remind you again to please check out the link down below in the video description. It'll take you to a special deal on Tim's masterclass. That's what we were kind of talking about today. Promoting, but also what a thing. I'm going to get into it. I got to get into his videos in his masterclass. I want to learn from the master. I want to learn. Oh, here we go. Rob says, plug everything into one power source if possible to avoid out of phase AC, which can destroy equipment. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a concern it is like if you've got a modern, I've never heard of equipment getting destroyed. Somebody's like, oh, I plugged in my amp here and my pedal board over here in my house and something blew up. It's like pretty rare, right? But, you know, it's always be a good thing, I guess, if you're curious about, like, I have questions about the grounding and stuff in this building, if it's all proper and tight and stuff like that. I'm just not sure. It might be something I want to have an electrician look at some point. Do you guys ever try the string butler? You know, Tim made a video on the string butler. G string seems to stay in tune much better. It makes a more direct path to the nut and then kind of goes around a roller sort of thing to the tuner, right? It replaces the truss rod cover and kind of spreads the strings in a way that's a little more maybe, I don't know, just a little bit softer angles and stuff like that. Let's see. That's interesting. Ben Tom says the Ernie Ball Music Man EVH neck is very close to my 69 Strat. Cool. Any thoughts on 0 fret versus nut? I don't ever have. I've never had a 0 fret is a guitar that has a little fret in front of the nut that kind of becomes the nut. In other words, the string breaks over that fret and then hits a nut to kind of spread out to the. It just seems like one more point of contact. You know, if you put a 0 fret and there's a nut right behind it, you're contacting both of those. So it might be a little more intonation-wise a little better. And with the 0 fret, it's not gonna, you know, especially if it was a stainless steel 0 fret, it's not gonna, you know, wear like a nut will, and you'll maybe have maybe really solid intonation and just consistency. But I don't think I would want one on my guitar, for instance, just because I'm trying to keep the trem in tune. If it's rubbing across that nut and it's also rubbing through the nut slots, it's just one more point of contact. So some guitars used to use them. Those. Anybody out there got a guitar with a 0 fret and had any experience? Plexico says, can you share any remedies for tinnitus you may have heard from other musicians? Kind of interesting. Mine was acting up. I feel like it's gotten better. It's like better now. I haven't thought about it for a few days. It was like acting. I know it's weird. I'm like, I plug my left one was always the problem. So if I plug it and I listen, I can hear my tinnitus in my left ear and hear how bad it is. Last few weeks, I was actually having some issues. Like, just seemed like my ears were ringing more, and I'm starting to get a little freaked out about it actually. Because I know they're sensitive and they're, you know, it can be a thing where it's like one day it just, you know, you get that ringing and it doesn't want to go away. But it's actually gotten better over the last couple of weeks. So I don't know if I had a little inner ear thing going on, or, you know, who the hell knows, right? It could be a virus or something, or congestion or whatever, and it can all affect. I don't have any great remedies. I know that some people use like out of phase, kind of like you can get hearing aids that play a tone. Isn't that right? That's sort of out of phase with the tinnitus, and that can kind of cancel it out. But I've never heard of anything solid that where it's like, this is the cure all. Really don't know. Yeah. This is talking about the tuning situation with the Gibsons and the tuning and helping the Les Paul stay in tune. This is especially important on a Les Paul. It's also important to tune the string up to pitch instead of down to pitch. It doesn't matter if you're using a full-aid rose or something with fine tuners at the bridge, but if you're using anything where the string's dragging through a nut, imagine tuning down to a pitch and now the string's in tune. The string is kind of going through the nut and you're tuning it down, you're slackening it, and then you go to bend the string. Well, generally what happens is it pulls the string a little bit and there's always a little bit of slack there. Whereas if you tune up and it's pulling the string through the nut and kind of stretching it, when you bend it, you've stretched it completely and the bend doesn't make it go out of tune anymore. So that's true. You want to generally speaking, yeah, you're saying there's tension stored between the tuner and the nut. And when you bend, you yank that and it'll go flat. It's totally true. If you've got a Gibson guitar, Strat to a lesser, or Tele to a lesser degree, but certainly on any Gibson, you want to tune up to the pitch and stop. Don't slack the string at all and then expect it to stay in tune. Hilton says, a privilege to see you both live. Thanks, man. Oh, but Tim's not here. Sorry. I wonder if you were on any, I think you mean Toy Matinee. Tim played all the guitar on the Toy Matinee record, I believe. Maybe not all the guitar, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, that was his studio project. When you listen to songs like Last Plane Out, I mean, that's all Tim playing all that crazy stuff. So I can answer that for sure. Very cool. Mark Bonilla joined for touring, but it was Tim on the record. What's my favorite Van Halen guitar? It's interesting. I've never had one of the Peavies. They seem like they were pretty good too, but I've got the Music Man and the EVH, and I like them both. I think that, recently I played like a real recent EVH, and to be honest, the neck on it was probably the most consistent with what I like, because it had bigger frets and it was a little wider, so it was a little more my speed. Jumbo frets, and for a long time Eddie was using the tiny frets, so both my Music Man back there and my EVH have tiny frets. Works good on both of them, and it's cool, and actually maybe better for tuning because you can't push it sharp as easy. But playability wise, the Wolfgang I played recently that had the slightly wider neck and the big frets was maybe the easiest to play for me. So I would say the most modern ones are maybe a little more my speed, just personally. That doesn't mean they're any better or worse. I love the pickups on both the EVH and the Music Man. They've got this great, like, all three positions are really usable. Kind of an interesting set of pickups. I mean, they're quite hot compared to what I would normally use, but that works for me sometimes when I'm doing a heavier track or something. I like to sometimes use the EVH guitar. I did it recently on this week on the Empress Heavy, this pedal. I did a video for this week. I used the EVH because I keep it in kind of drop. It's down in E flat, but then I can pull the D tuner and it goes to drop C sharp, and I can play heavy stuff on it, and it just works good for music like that. So, yeah. Man, it's warm in here. I'm gonna go relatively soon. I'm gonna hang another like 10 minutes, I think, and then I'm gonna split because I just want to. We got these crazy rains going on here today, and I want to go outside and make sure everything's cool with the car and everything and stuff. And then I got a ton of music to learn today and stuff too. So this is nice. Compliments. Moments like these, I'm grateful things like YouTube exist. Thank you, boys, for doing this. I feel the same way. I feel so fortunate to get to chat with Tim and that all you guys show up, and it's a nice thing, Yeah. Anybody here? I didn't think you meant hate, but anybody in here? I think you said remember Greg Howe. I love Greg Howe. Greg is an amazing guitar player. He's out going to do some gigs like lately. Soon. He's got gigs coming up. I think Greg's an incredible guitar player. I went all the way. Here's a story. When I first came to LA right before I moved here. So I went to NAMM when I was 19 years old. Came down from Edmonton, Canada. It was my first NAMM show. It was very exciting. Went all the way to Anaheim and got to go to my first NAMM show. I remember it was the year that they were releasing the Universe guitar, which was the 7-string Ibanez. So I remember seeing Steve Vai there. I was like, this is amazing. My very first NAMM show, 1990. And then 6 months later, September, I moved to LA and went to MI. But so I was still living in Edmonton. While I was in town, I went to go see Greg Howe. It must have been a NAMM kind of show, you know, NAMM surrounded NAMM, but his band Howe 2, which was with his brother, I think, was singing. They were, and it was kind of like almost like Van Halen kind of thing, like musically and stuff. And they were doing a gig at MI. I was already in touch with MI because I was going to go to the school. And I remember leaving Anaheim and taking a bus somehow all the way to LAX, getting a bus from LAX to Hollywood, one of those bus shuttle things, you know, took forever. And I got all the way to MI and I went to see Howe 2. I remember I really wanted to go see Greg Howe. So I put in a lot of effort to get all the way from Anaheim to Hollywood on a bus when I was 19 to figure out how to go see Greg Howe play. So yeah, I remember Greg Howe really well. Really well. Yeah, he was great, man. Deer Creek says, can you count on YouTube being fair and not shutting down your channel for whatever reason? I've seen it happen to others. I don't know if you can count on it. You know, there's always something that could happen. It's a business that's not, we don't own it. We don't, they've got arbitrary decisions that they make and things can happen. I've thought about it. Like, what happens if this just goes away overnight, you know, at some point? But I would rebuild it. I mean, I know people that have, under certain circumstances, I think Marty lost his channel at some point because of a dispute with a business partner or something like that. It seemed like it was really unfair, but you know what? He built it back from. I would like to think that you guys had come, you know, if something happened to my channel, that I would start a new one and I'd have to start from scratch, and it might take a couple, 3 years, but the people that really wanted to be there, they'd find you and they'd come subscribe again, right? So you can't worry about it too much. I keep most of the videos that I've made, you know, on a hard drive and archive them and everything. In the event that something happens, you know, a ton of the work that I've done is all archived and stuff like that. And so if I needed to, I could re-upload things and start over and build from scratch again anyway. So you can't worry about things like that in life. It's like worrying about car accidents or worrying about, all you can do is try and drive safe, you know, buy insurance, you know. So my insurance is, you know, my hard drive full of videos, and I try and not fall, you know, you know, go to the wayside of the YouTube rules and stuff like that, and just do what I'm supposed to do, and it's all gone well, you know. Yeah. You and Tim are great musicians. Hey, I've learned so much from him. You know, I consider him a mentor, and you know, he's just. You know, when Tim plays, it's all the right stuff, you know, and it's what you should be doing in my mind. It's like, it's not a million notes, and he might play a fast run, but it's the right notes in the right place, and he winds it up at the right time and always gets melodic and it lands on the right place and stuff. And that's what to take away from him. He's got also a great perspective on layering, you know, how to build. Like, these are the parts that should happen in this song, you know, and he lays it down. He does it quickly and efficiently and cleanly and executes with great sound, great ideas, you know. That's the Tim Pierce calling card, you know. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay, let's see. How do you deal with the drop in volume from a split humbucker? Sir Modern HSH in natural finish with a 5-way, but in the 2 and 4, it drops so much. There's not much you can do about that, man, other than use a compressor. And generally, if I'm using a split position, I'm compressing because I'm playing kind of clean anyway, and I want to like bump it up a little bit. And so, you know, on my clean channel on my amp, like, I don't play a humbucker clean that much. I find myself single coils clean, humbuckers dirty a lot of the time. So. And if you're playing dirty and you go to the split positions, you won't really notice as much volume drop because the amp is compressing the humbucker more anyway. So in a clean situation, it's like, that's where, you know, I'll tend to, for my clean sounds, the compressor's always coming on, and I'm tending to boost with the compressor. I'll set the threshold and get the ratio and get the compressor to do its thing, and then I'll always bump it up a couple dB more than what the dry tone is. I don't know. It's just what I do. I don't always set it for unity. I want to push a little bit with the compressor. So that tends to make up for the difference. Now, I actually like the difference in sound. Like I don't tap, for example, on my signature Sir here, I don't tap the bridge humbucker. I use it in parallel. So when I pull this up, this guy splits to parallel, and I find that makes it about the same volume as the single coils, just about the same. So instead of being louder and then these two are quieter, it's like very balanced then. And I use that tapped position. Well, it's not tapped, it's parallel. Sorry, I just get confusing. I use the parallel position for this pickup quite a bit, and I sort of prefer the sound of a parallel humbucker than I do to a tapped humbucker. It always seems a little weak to me, like you say. So maybe you want to try. You could try doing a parallel thing, like do a push pull where when you do that, I mean, your mileage may vary, but there's some suggestions. Try. I would say the first thing to do is if you got a compressor lying around, when you go to your split positions, try turning on the compressor and bumping up the output of the compressor a little bit so it matches a little closer. See if that's helpful. Yeah, I kind of embrace that stuff. The differences in volume, like I don't mind these days differences in neck shapes, differences in tones, differences in volume. It's like, okay, well, that guitar does this thing in this position. I'll use it for this sound with these pedals, and I kind of embrace it, rather than try and make everything sound super similar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, Lauren's saying somebody had my favorite venues, Baked Potato. Absolutely, it's great, super small, super kind of, when you see it, it's a dive, really. It's kind of a dive, but it's a legendary dive, and it sounds great in there, and it's a great place to see a show. And I like their Baked Potatoes. Yep, yep. Why do I need an octave fuzz? Well, it could be just a really cool sound, that Octavia kind of thing, or sometimes even not for the octave thing, like doing low notes with it, or can sound really cool. You're not really getting the octave at that point, but it's just cool, Best octave fuzz pedal. I don't know if there is a best. I love the old the Boss Hyper Fuzz, but they're hard to find now, and it's because it's so usable with buffers and stuff in front. You don't need it's not a germanium or any kind of pedal that relies on the impedance of seeing the passive pickups and stuff like fuzz faces and some old octave fuzzes they're just temperamental with other gear. The Boss Hyper Fuzz works great, sounds awesome, it has a few different modes, and the octave thing is stellar, and it sounds really cool to me. It's not the traditional esoteric kind of boutique-y answer, but I love the thing. Growing up only using distortion pedals at the most, are there some effects you just won't use live? That I just won't use live? No, I mean, I'll pretty much use anything. I think I understand the question, but I'm pretty wide open. I was thinking of what I just said, actually, like that's almost a segue from the previous thing. Sometimes certain pedals are difficult, like fuzzes especially, or real treble boosters and stuff. They can be difficult with modern guitar rigs because of buffered, they want to see the output coming right out of the guitar, and they're a little finicky, and they can sound different with heat. Or I used a real treble booster on the last tour with Five for Fighting for playing a Queen song. Treble booster into the quad cortex on an AC30 normal channel model. It actually sounded awesome for Brian May, but there's sort of no substitute for a real treble booster. It just sounds amazing. So I used a real one, a 65 color boost, I think it's called. And it just does this awesome range master thing. At one gig though, I turned it on. It was like coming through the amp, and I'm like, oh no, what is that? And it's like, I had to play the song, and I ended up doing it. The guitar's so loud when it's on that you couldn't really hear it anyway, but if I muted or turned down, you could hear it going crazy. So I just turned it on and off as much as I could in the quiet segments. Next gig, all that was gone, and it never did it again for the rest of the tour. They're so dependent on heat. I think that happened in New York, and it was humid, and it's just they're dependent on heat and the day and the humidity and stuff. So there's certain, long story short, some effects I don't want to use live are ones that necessarily, you know, do that. But I'm contradicting myself because I did use it. If anything's temperamental like that, and I find it, you know, it might sound different after 2 hours. You might find some germanium pedals and stuff. It's like they just sound weird after, you know, after they heat up or in different temperature and stuff. And that stuff I try and eliminate. And it's why I recommend the Starlight from Crazy Tube Circuits for a fuzz. It's just really consistent, works great. The Boss Hyper Fuzz I just recommended works great because they're consistent. Don't have as many many issues, you know. And that might not be your question or what you were asking, but nonetheless, it was I enjoyed the answer that I gave. Anyone know of a 50 watt speaker that merges a greenback and V30? No, and I'm going to recommend the V type. Then it's almost probably exactly that, like 50 watts. It might be 50 or 60, but the V type to me, when I first tried it, actually sounded like a combo of kind of like, oh, just a broad sort of swath of Celestion. And I think they sound good. I like them. So. Found an old video of Pete Thorn teaching a Paul Gilbert arpeggio. Oh man, I remember doing that. I almost got tendonitis doing that one. But yeah, it was the string skipping arpeggio thing. That was it. Go easy on that one. But I like that way of playing arpeggios, kind of skipping strings. He kind of came up with that around the time sweep picking was, you know, it really gained popularity. And he was like, here's another way to do it. It's the string skipping arpeggios. What's a good place to find IR profiles? Branching into the modeling world. So you mean just speaker profiles? I mean, I always recommend Celestion and York, some great ones. If you're in the 2 Notes ecosystem, you know, you can get from them, from their stores. Well, I have a signature package with them. But Celestion, York, 2 Notes, you know, I would say some of the good ones. There's others. There's lots of others out there. Do you agree LA has been in a rough place the last few years? The bars look empty. The shows are meh. I don't know, all the entertainment has suffered so much since the strikes. I'm in Hollywood. Hollywood's a tough place, man. I like going there to see things, but it's like I wouldn't want to live there right now, you know, although I love it. And I still, you know, I hope it never, it's got its own quirky thing, but you know, I really enjoy Santa Monica. I really enjoy Pasadena. I really enjoy some of the other towns in LA as a place to live, and then go to Hollywood to do things, you know, if I have to go there and do things. So, you know, like Pasadena is a great town, man. I love Pasadena. I really, really, really like it out there. And there's some music venues and places that have live music and, you know, bands that play, and it's a lot of covers and stuff, but it's a cool little scene, and it's just a nice place to live. I got a little older, and you know, there was a time where I lived in Pasadena for a long time, actually in my 20s, and then I like wanted to go to Hollywood. I moved to Hollywood and like, you know, shuttled around there for a while, and it was a great, vibrant time. Actually, like late 90s in Hollywood was really fun, and I was in a band that was cool, and it was like, you know, the clubs were cool, and it was a really fun time actually for me. Into the early 2000s and stuff. Still lived in Hollywood. By the mid 2000s, I moved over to the Valley and I never wanted to live in the Valley, but Studio City, which is just like right around the corner. So it's like, if you want a little more calm life, you can go to, you know, Studio City kind of area, North Hollywood even, and you know, a little more chill situation. I loved living in Studio City. It was great. Then I went out to Santa Monica for like 6 years, and that was like moving out of LA. It was weird. Wasn't enough music going on out there for me, to be honest, but I loved Santa Monica. Nowhere in LA has it all. That's the one thing. You're always going to find that you're missing something about another neighborhood when you move to a new one. I've just come to realize that. So Santa Monica was great for the beach, really nice and everything, but it was a lot of like, there was none of my people out there. You know, that I mean, now it's kind of funny because after moving away from there, I've now met, you know, folks like Chris Cheney and different people that live out that way by the beach. It's like, I wish I knew you while I lived out here, because I didn't have a lot of musician friends in Santa Monica. And then to get, anybody knows that lives in LA, to get to the other side of the 405 when you're in Santa Monica, you're like, ugh, too much trouble. I'm just going to stay at the beach. So I didn't get to Hollywood a lot over those years. So anyways, I spent my life in this place, it seems. Orbith Cole with the super chat there. Just got my PT Sig HSS. they're out there. That's fantastic to hear. That's awesome. Love it. Can you describe the stock pickup switching? For example, should position 2 be affected by the push-pull? Position 2 doesn't really get affected by the push-pull, no, because it taps. So in other words, when you go to position 2, this switch here is series parallel for the bridge humbucker, but you're only getting this coil when you go to position 2. It taps. So there is one tapped position on this. You get this single and this one when you go to position 2, and that's a great sound. But because of that, this isn't going to do anything because this only affects when both these coils are working. So yeah, this doesn't matter. What you will find is if you go to parallel and then you go to all 5 positions, the volume is basically perfectly balanced. If you go to series, this is going to be louder, but that's cool because you want louder for a humbucker. That's the point to me. You know, so hopefully that explains the switching. And I'm glad. Thanks for getting the guitar. I'm glad you like it. And which color did you get? I wonder. 143. I got to split soon, you guys, and get some more work done. But I'll answer a couple more questions. We've still got 522 people online. This has been a great show. Glad you're all here. When you record your effects product videos, do you mic your tube amps? Yes. Or record from your quad cortex. Almost never recording quad cortex for a effect video. Occasionally, I will use modeling in pedal videos. The time that I tend to do it is if I'm using a stereo pedal, say it's a stereo Leslie simulator, rotary speaker, or maybe a stereo chorus. Sometimes I'll take the left and right stereo outputs and I'll go right into my interface into 2 inputs, and then I'll pull up 2 plug-in PT100s on 2 channels in my DAW, and then I'll hard pan them and use generally the clean channel. And then it's kind of like running a pedal in front of 2 clean channel PT100s. And what I find is it's so easy to record that way. And just because I don't have an easy way to plug into 2 amps here and record stereo with microphones and everything on 2 amplifiers. So I'll use the plug-in version. And people they'll be like, what amp did you use for this? It sounds amazing. And it's like, it does sound amazing because it's like the exact same amp duplicated on 2 channels, hard pan split, and then you really hear the effect and it works really well. So that's the one time that I'll do modeling kind of stuff, you know. And I could use something like a quad cortex for that, actually. It's got 2 inputs. I could run into both inputs and then hard pan those and use the amps and the quads. So I've never even thought of that, but it's just easy to do it with the plug-in. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, talking about 0 frets here, Deer Creek says 0 fret helps eliminate nut depth issues over the strings. For sure, because sometimes that can be a thing, like especially when you use a tremolo or you're bending a lot, sometimes just wear over the nut over a period of a couple of years, all of a sudden you get a lower slot than others, you know, they'll wear unevenly. And it's very difficult even for a tech to cut the exact same depth on all the strings. It's doing a nut is an art. You need a good tech that can do a proper nut. And so it's like the 0 fret definitely helps to eliminate that stuff. And this is interesting. Glenn says, I find the 0 fret makes the open strings have a tone closer to fretted notes. That makes sense. I mean, it's more consistent for sure, but at the expense of you know, having a little bit more friction. So on a guitar with a tremolo, I wouldn't do it. You know, if it's a normal guitar, you know, with a fixed bridge, a tune-o-matic or something, I guess it's okay, you know, at that point. So many questions here. This is awesome. But how about Nickelback's new record, says Patrick. I haven't heard that. I take back all the flack and Rest America gave them. They're a fine quartet. I haven't heard it. Is it good? Hey, man, we should get those guys. You know, they seem to have a good sense of humor about their own. You know, they took a lot of crap over the years and stuff. And they're still a band, and they stuck to, you know, they can sell out arenas and stuff. There's people that like them, you know. It's like at some point with a band after they've been around for a number of years and they're still out there doing it. It's all the original members or whatever. I mean, I think they've replaced one guy, but you know, you got to give it up and just be like, it's, you know, because otherwise you're just kind of like somebody said about Rush, you know, after all these years, if you're still criticizing them, you don't give it up for them, you're just being a dick. It's kind of true, you know. It's like whether or not you even like the music, you know, bands like Iron Maiden, bands like Rush, you know, they just they persevered and they stuck it out and did their thing, and it's like you got to give respect for that, right? And let's put Nickelback in that category. Ooh, I'm not gonna put Nickelback up there with Rush, but but you know, it's like, you know what I'm saying. It's just like, hey man, if you're around, you're making music and doing that, I got a lot of respect for that, no matter what. You know, that's just where it's at. So I wasn't, okay, I'll say it. I wasn't a big Creed guy, you know. just not my thing. But after what happens with them, then they go do Alter Bridge, you know, with Miles, and I was like, and I like that, and I like Miles. I knew Miles years ago, had met him, and we've hung out a little bit over the years, and had sushi with him once, like probably 10 years ago, and it was like, oh, that's cool. And then, you know, Tremonti, I met him. He's a lovely guy, sweetheart of a guy. And I felt like kept getting to be a better and better guitar player over the years. Then Mark goes and does this. Have you heard his Sinatra record? I think I've talked about it on the show before, but he did a full record of Frank Sinatra covers. He's singing Frank Sinatra. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It's great. He kills it. And it's just amazing. And so it's like, okay, well, that guy, obviously, like, fantastic, you know? So, yeah. Just got to give it up for some of these folks. So if Nickelback's still around and they're good natured and they put out a good record, God bless them. That's fantastic. Always love your live stream. Hey, thank you. Thanks for the super chat. Regarding drop in volume and split by a Music Man, Luke 3 has trim pots inside to level the positions. Never heard of that. That's amazing. I didn't know that. Incredible. It's like some kind of active electronics that do that. That's very interesting. Have you ever played at Harpo's? Harpo's, yeah. It's not really that small, is it? It's like a old school rock club. I was there a while ago and saw Seduce play. If you're a Detroit person, you know Seduce. That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago now with Friedman, but it was cool. I think I did play there, but I just don't remember, because I remember the name before I went to the Seduce show there 5 years ago. I was like, yeah, Harpo's, of course, I've been there. And then, like, I got there and I was like, have I been here? I wasn't sure, but I think I did play like 20 years ago there, maybe. Detroit is always a tour stop, and played many places there. FC2, yeah, that's the pedal, the Hyper Fuzz. Love that thing. Okay, let's see here. Treble booster. That's right, they can be. Yeah. I just enjoyed the answer I gave. Yeah, I did say that. Sorry, I had to. Let's see, what else have we got here? Is this true? Prince Westerberg says Williamsburg, New York is on fire. Is that true? Is there another like terrible forest fire thing going on? Oh God, is that really true? Let's research it and find out. That's awful news. I don't know. I am interested though. That's horrible. Oh, that sucks, man. There's a fire there for sure. What? Oh, it's just like it's not a forest fire. It's Williamsburg, which is Brooklyn. Got it. It's not. Yeah. So there was a big 5-alarm fire. Some stores got it. It said, actually, yeah, that's terrible. I hope they got that. Sorry, I was thinking upstate or something. It wasn't clear. Brooklyn, of course. I'm such a knucklehead sometimes. Well, I hope they get that under wraps soon. What do you think of Moore products? They've made some cool stuff. I mean, they copy a lot of things, so treading lightly, but they've made some cool stuff. Their little IR loader was great for what it was. It was 5 years ago, but there was nothing else that you could get a mini pedal IR loader. You know, they kind of had a unique product there for sure. There's a super chat there for Peter. Gonna grab that. Great Sunday show. Always enjoyed seeing Tim. Me too. I have to ask videos this week. I can't tell you exactly what I'm gonna do this week. Actually, not because it's top secret or something, but I'm in the throes of. Okay, next weekend I'm in Newfoundland for a clinic. So way out in Trinity Hall in Newfoundland, Canada. If you're in Newfoundland, please come to my clinic. Tickets are available at Eventbrite. Just search Pete Thorn Trinity Hall. You will find it. But so I'm headed out next weekend. So guys, not sure about the show next week because I'm doing a 2-day clinic Saturday and Sunday. So I'm going to be I'm going to be occupied actually doing the clinic. I still might sign on and do a kind of abbreviated Sunday live in the evening. Sorry, Ben, if it conflicts with your show. But that's my plan for next Sunday because I've got to head out there. So I might from the hotel room kind of thing later on that evening do a 45-minute live stream or half an hour or something like that, just to go online and keep it consistent and be here. The following week, I will be inviting some special guests. So I'm not going to say who just yet, but I think the following week and the week after that are both going to have nice guests on the show. So let me just confirm with the guests and make sure everything's cool. But anyway, long story short, next week I have clinic in Canada. So don't look for me at 11:30 a.m. next week. I know I hate to miss it, but maybe I'll try and sign on later in the afternoon, maybe 3 p.m. Pacific, something like that, and do my live stream. I'll put up a watch page a couple days before. Because of that, I'm headed to Newfoundland. I'm also getting all these songs dialed in for tour with Nick Carter. I've got so much going on right now that I'm going to try and by Tuesday or so be through learning what I need to know for the first round of rehearsals with Nick Carter. And then hopefully Wednesday, Thursday, I could be filming a video of some sort. I've got many pedals to do videos for here. Hotlanta drive pedal. Interstellar audio effects. I've got a killer Bigsby pedal here from the folks that do the Bigsby pedal, spacing on their name right now. I got so much stuff to get to. There's an amp from Blackstar. There's also the Driftwood amp back there. I've got a video half done for that. I need to finish. So, but I can't say what's coming this week. I'm just not sure because I'm learning millions of songs for tour. So we will see. Sorry, Peter. But I wish I had a better answer for you. Do I sound spaced? Do I sound stressed? I'm not stressed, but time is an issue bearing down on me. Okay. Is this true? Chad has a skating rink in his basement. Who's the one laughing? Chad Kroger has a skating rink in his house. He could play hockey in his house, maybe. That's pretty rad. I didn't know that. Car Pros is Dumpville. Yeah, but it's a great old dump. This is a venue in Detroit. Great old dump. Love those kinds of places. Yeah. 4-hour time difference between Newfoundland. Did I say it right? Newfoundland. Not Newfoundland. Not Newfoundland. Newfoundland. Somebody called me out because I say Newfoundland. But I think it's Newfoundland. So Brian, that's right, 4-hour time difference. And so I'll keep that in mind for next week. Let's see. Yeah, that's almost like jet lag land. 4 hours is enough. Let's see. Love your demo on the Jakey Lee. I gotta go, you guys, but I'm gonna add a couple more questions. Love your demo on the Jakey Lee Shredtastic. Thanks. That's a really good sounding amp. What's the other great news you can't tell us? I can't tell you. It might end up being nothing, but it might end up being cool. We'll see. I'll tell you eventually. It was neat. You're going to go, oh, that's cool when I tell you. At least I think you will. Recording for anyone cool. Definitely. All kinds of stuff, but I can't tell you. Yeah. Keep it on the down low. How about do your live show from your clinic? You know, I thought about that, but what's going on Sunday is kind of a critique, which sounds too critical to me, but I want folks that attend the clinic to bring in their own song ideas and their own kind of recordings and stuff, and I can offer any kind of insight. So I feel like that's kind of a personal thing where, you know, I'll be listening to music and stuff and then offering, you know, I don't want to assume anybody would want their stuff broadcast or something over the internet. And it won't be a thing where I can, you know, maybe take a lot of questions and stuff and be that interactive because of that. So I just feel like, and there's not only that, it's like when I go to do the clinics, I like the clinic to not be live streamed. I like the clinic to be one-on-one in a clinic with the people in the room, you know, especially if they're paying to be there, which this is. It's a paid event, 2-day event. I want to focus fully on the room, the folks that are in there, and make it not about the internet and trying to, you know, the Pete Thorn brand spread far and wide across the internet. I love doing that. I love doing this, and this is a thing. But when I go into a clinic, I want to make it a little bit more intimate, make it like, you know, if there's 20, 30, 40, even if it's 100 people, if it's 10 people or 5 people, I want to focus all my attention on those people that are there in the room. It's just kind of how I approach doing clinics. I feel like as soon as I turn on the camera, I'm thinking about the chat and I'm thinking about other things other than the folks that are right in front of me, you know, if that makes sense. Okay, with that, thanks for being here. And please check out the link to Tim's masterclass in the video description below. Click there. It'll take you to all the info about Tim's masterclass. Getting close to 2,000 videos. You sign up at a reduced price. It's a special price. When you click the link, you'll see you can get the masterclass for a year. There's no way, if you apply yourself and you go do it, there's no way you're going to come away from, if you watch, 5 of Tim's videos, you're going to come up with, cool stuff and learn something out of it, let alone almost 2,000. I mean, there's an endless assortment there of topics and stuff for you to check out. So please, like, honestly, I'm not just blowing smoke or whatever. It's like, there's no better way you could spend your money on guitar lessons than to go sign up for Tim's masterclass and learn directly from what he's put together. It's an incredible amount of work and dedication, and he's laid it all out there on the table for you guys to check out, for me to check out. I got a lot to learn. Every time I watch one of Tim's videos, I'm learning something, He did a live stream yesterday where he played the chords to Ordinary World by Duran Duran, and he soloed over it. And he was talking about how it's a great song to work on your soloing over, a great chord progression, because it's just complicated enough that it actually forces you to play target notes of the chords. It's not just a 4-chord progression in a key. There's some shifts that are happening, little key change things, and unique little chords. Just right there, it's like, yeah, that would be a great thing for me to work on. Just play those chords, even just sit and play it on acoustic guitar into my phone and then solo over it, and target the notes. What a great lesson, So I always learn stuff from him every single time we hang, talk. If I just watch one of his videos, he's just such a resource and a great guy and a stellar source of knowledge. Okay, everybody, thanks for being here. Like I say, I'll put up probably a watch page to do a shortened live stream, but it ain't going to be at the usual time. Probably be, I want to say 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Pacific. And probably my time will be 7, 8 p.m., something like that out on the East Coast next week. When I can get back in the room and stuff, I'll do a short live stream, just check in with you guys and see what's going on next week. And then the next 2 weeks after that, I'll be back here, same time, same place, usual time, with some really killer guests coming up over the next in September. It's going to be cool. So yeah, it'll be one of them. You'll be like, whoa, that's awesome, because he doesn't do a lot of these kinds of things. And then the other one's just going to be a great, just killer hang with somebody that I haven't had enough time to sit and chat with in this kind of situation. So it's just gonna be killer. So, okay. Everybody take care. I think I'm fired up on caffeine. I'm crazy. I'm talking fast. I'm ready to go. Have a great week. Love you all. Thanks for your super chats. Be safe. Be nice to one another.